Welcome to Section 31, episode number 360. No, 200.
No, you're right.
I think so. I think it's 368, and I labeled this 268. 368. I'm Dan Hammond.
And I am Rogue Schindler.
Pay no attention to the text at the top of the screen. 368. Welcome back. We haven't been here in a while. We actually have some CCG stuff to talk about. So let's do some of that first, and then talk about what we did this weekend, and then we'll come back to what we're going to do next weekend. Sound like a plan?
That's a good idea.
All right. So a couple weeks ago, we had the raffle. That went pretty well. Gave away a lot of stuff. Some of it's gone out. In addition, all the raffles, the last two raffle stuff has also already gone out. So everyone should be expecting all kinds of stuff in the mail. I sent out a lot of kits and things, just packages going everywhere. I still have a lot of the big bulky items to send out. I didn't have enough packaging because usually we got the little small bubble mailers, but I'm sending packs and packs and packs of things. So I've got to send out boxes this time. So that's still going out. Maybe this weekend we'll get some more of it out since, we'll talk about what we're going to be doing later. So that's great. And I see there's, we haven't talked about, if we did, it's been a while. Do we talk about Coming of Age, the set that came out? The kind of the supplemental TNG supplemental set?
I think you and I talked about it, but
okay.
I don't think we talked about it on the show.
All right. Looks great. We had some, back when we did TNG, you know, it was a new thing. It was a long time ago. This is a revision to the starters, so that we got 4 new starters with upgraded text for things that got errataed, and because you know the whole engine got changed, right? And the Ferengi guy got changed to unique, and a lot of little changes got made along the way. They took this opportunity to add in a bunch of cards, so they've got a bunch of new Romulans. They've got a TNG Maquis guy. And just a bunch of other random things, a couple of reprints, so that when you play the TNG block, you know, this fits right in. And, you know, you could, I don't know if technically it's supposed to be in the TNG block, but I would say this is just made to be part of that group, right?
You know, TNG block is rotated out now anyway. So if you're going to go back and play that block, you might as well add this in.
I mean, it's got the correct text on the cards. It's got a bunch of little, mostly personnel, right, that got added. Alyssa Ogawa, and just a bunch of little helpful things.
Yeah, really good collection. Just scanning through right now, and nice Cardassian TNG, which is always fun. That's like they're kind of thin, but it's still fun to try and pull that off. And yeah, like you said, the Maquis, it's nice.
And the beautiful looking missions that just have a lot of icons. I want to say reported activity was already in the errata file. Is that right?
That sounds right.
It was one of the 2-player game missions where it was already there, because I think it said engineering instead of engineer.
That's correct.
Yeah. But nice to see a high-quality version to put in decks. And, again, those 3 other missions, energy readings, and board game scenario, battle site, fantastic work. So I'm looking forward to that. The next time we play TNG, these will be fun to play with. That's for sure.
An extra Nagilum, which from the list of decks it's in looks like it's very popular.
Yeah. You know what? There's the text on the first page says specifically the TNG card pool is home fronts 1 through 6, TNG, supplemental, engage, sky's limit, warpack emissary, and coming of age. So they did it on purpose. They put it ready. So
it's discovered.
Yeah. Excellent. And the teaser is talking about original series block, but there was another teaser on the website that I saw today.
That's right.
It looks like I want to say when we reprinted Starfleet Phaser Pistol, I think, as a promo card way back when.
Right.
I think we put something very similar to that icon on there.
What that icon reminds me of is speaking of TNG, that TNG supplemental icon, which was, this is the same icon as another set.
Yeah.
But we're reprinting cards that go with that set. So I don't know, like if we want to try to extrapolate from that, you know, maybe this is some much needed, you know, 22nd century reprints.
Yep.
Of some kind.
So I went back. The errata of Starfleet Phaser Pistol has a colored version of this golden icon. I was looking at the Enterprise Collection set, and There's a couple of errata cards like Archer, the errata that gives him a download of Porthos instead of adds 1 to X. He also
Right.
has that icon. Looks like the Enterprise collection set icon instead of the preview icon that came on the original Enterprise collection cards.
Right. Because that is the set icon we have on the website,
Exactly.
even though it was not on those cards. So, all right, that makes sense. That would be great.
Yeah, we'll see what that means. I'm guessing you're right. It's probably like a supplemental, maybe to fit in that block. That would be
Yeah, I
a
was going
lot
to
of
say that would
that'd be
be
a lot
right.
of
That would be nice to fold those into the block.
be a heck of a lot of Starfleet cards to add. But those Klingon decks have been doing pretty well, so maybe that's what they have in mind. I don't know. I'm out of the loop on that one, so we can speculate. I have no idea.
Well, speaking of being out of loop on things, which is not the greatest way to segue into something that I'm supposed to be in charge of, but um, in as much as I am in charge of it, and you should see the spreadsheet mapped out tabs for release after release after release of achievements. Uh, Unfortunately, because of the technical team deficiencies that we've had, and by deficiency I mean lack of personnel, not a lack of quality personnel. We, Chris was overburdened, and then I am overburdened, and then we finally got some people to help him out, and we got some things fixed, and we had some things caught up, and then we had somebody new, a dedicated technical team member for the achievements, and then he fell off the face of the earth. Um, and so it's been rough in the achievement land, but we have had mention in spring. We talked about trying to get down and find out what was going on with those, and try to get caught up. And I was like, that's great. Here they are. And a couple of weeks ago, they started popping up.
Neat.
So you may have started noticing that the new achievements tab is starting to become more and more populated. I've seen several where no one has gone before icons pop up for new achievements being earned, and release group achievements being backlogged into the date windows that they were supposed to be legal for. So those are gradually getting filled in. I think they're mostly done now, and are very helpful tech team member whose name keeps popping up in my email, so you'd think I would remember it by now, Marcus, has been, he kept charging forward into, I think, just doing what he could and getting what was up, and he forged right past what was done and into things that were designed and not yet meant for release. And so I was like, hey, all right, that's great. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Those are not exactly ready yet, which is why you have questions on them. That's why they have X's with question marks next to where there should be numbers of things. So that's awesome, and I will go in and start working on those if we're going to get that far into it, and we can start having achievements again. So we can start having achievements again. It's fantastic. I'm very excited. I think I've seen one or two people mention it, looking around on the boards, like questioningly, is this a thing that's happening? Are these popping up? The answer is yes. So now that we've gone through and backlogged the releases that were meant to be put out for the sort of mini set accompanying releases, hopefully we can actually get in some of those design, more interesting design achievements, full set of release achievements. I'm sorry, rather than just release achievements, doing some more interesting design things that is not play with 8 cards from the set. Yay, this set came out. And play in a tournament during the release events. Yay, release.
So some of the fun things that was going to be hard to do, but now that we've knocked out the easy things, you can start looking at the hard things again.
Exactly. And Marcus seems very gung ho about it. He's got comments all over my Google Doc about what's this go and how does this work and this conflicts with that. Which one do we do? And I'm like, awesome. Let's dig in and go to town. So that is the thing, and it's going to start coming back up. So and then I look for more coming soon.
More reason to get out and play in a tournament. Fantastic. Well,
That's
that
right.
I guess that leads us to what's coming up, right? Oh, or do you want to talk
Or
about what we did this weekend?
did you want to take a break first?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So
So
this is one of the reasons that we have not been recording.
yeah. So for those of you who have paid attention before, we run events in San Diego every year. The San Diego Rocket Race was this last weekend, and my partner James and I waited to almost the last minute to get everything done. Thankfully, we have a test race 2 weeks before the actual race, so that's really our deadline that we have to have everything done for, because we need to test the puzzles that we write with our test team. So we got most of the things done by that. It went well. We got some great notes, and then we added some things. We added some things to the second part of the race to fill in some space, and I think that went pretty well too. We had 5 teams show up, which is, I want to say, we're still on the decline, but we're hoping to turn that around with the addition of a social media manager who's going to be joining our team. Um, so that's going to be fantastic. Hopefully, we can drum up some more interest, and hopefully next year when this rolls around, we will have a little bit more warning to teams, and more advertising. Not necessarily billboards or anything, but emails out to teams that say, hey, this is coming up in 2 months. Why don't you get ready for it? That kind of thing. Instead of just, hey, next week, everybody ready?
Okay.
Yeah. But so we had a great time. The advantage of the 5 teams that we had are they were all repeat teams. Everyone knew what was going on. I think we had one question over the course of the race. One call up
Wow.
for help. Everyone else, and it was for the one puzzle that I don't want to talk about yet. Um, at all. But everything else went really smooth. We finished a little every year we've got 4 or 5 puzzles that lead up to a lunch spot. You solve the puzzle, you figure out where it goes, you figure out where it tells you to go, you get there, you get the next puzzle, and you do that. You leapfrog to a few places, and then by noonish is what we plan for is the lunch spot. You get an hour break, and at the end of that, we hand you just a packet of typically 3 or 4 times how many puzzles you've done already, but they're not nearly as complicated. They're quick. Most of them are quick to solve, and then you use that and just drive all over the place or run all over the place, depending on what the format is, and get as many photos as you can of your team in all these different places. This time, we only had 4 in the morning, 4 puzzles in the morning. So a lot of teams got to lunch before. What time do you guys get there? Like 10:30?
Well, it was 10:52.
Yeah, so almost 11 o'clock, which is about an hour.
Yeah.
I don't want to say an hour more earlier than we wanted teams to get there, maybe half an hour earlier, but that's fine. And then the second half of the race was 27 puzzles, which is more than I think we've ever given out. And based on based on the testing, I figured a couple of teams would get either close to all of them or all of them, but not everyone would. And you guys finished so early. I started looking at my clock at like 3:30 at the finish line, thinking they got till 5 o'clock, but man, they could be here any minute.
There were points at which I was like, because I remember the days when I started packing games to play at the finish line because we had to wait until. I mean, now that was before the scavenger hunt. But even after the first couple of years of scavenger hunt, it was like, okay, well, we'll have some time to kill while we wait for all the teams to come in and everything. And I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. But I usually have games in my car these days anyway. But we weren't in my car, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah. You want to tell that story?
Well, to finish the story I was on, we got there in sufficient time, although we found a way to fill that time, as it turns out, out of pride.
Well, there were 2 teams that got to the finish line. They arrived at the finish line under the assumption that they had got all the puzzles right, or they had a picture for everything.
They had 27 answers.
27 answers, yeah. But both your team that got there first and the second place team both got one wrong. Different ones wrong, but got one wrong. They missed the 1942 map on one of the murals. They just got the mural, and I think you guys went to the wrong yacht club with a boat out in front, one without flags.
Named after
Yeah.
Hey, San Diego County Community
Yes.
College. It was.
It
You,
fit 75% of the
you,
requirements.
you
That
don't
is
know
correct.
how many times during the rest of that scavenger hunt drive, somebody in the car said, "We should have held a flag up over that boat." Like, there should have been a flag. We should just like got a T-shirt and hung it. We put it in the corner of the flag. It's a flag. Like, it bothers me that there's not a flag there. It's like there's a flag right there behind it. It's like that's inside. It's like, I don't know. And I was like, and we're going through Miracosta Yacht Club. No, Miramar Yacht Club. There's a Miramar Yacht Club in New York. Um, I don't know. The Grossmont Yacht Club. Nope, that's not that. And like just brute force trying to find it, and Point Loma Yacht Club, because somebody thought there was a Point Loma Community College, and then we got all excited when there was Point Loma Yacht Club, except there was no Point Loma Community College. So I'm glad we didn't backtrack to that. And then eventually somebody found Southwestern while we were sitting around at the finish line, and like you can't get Google Earth on mobile, or you can't get Google Street View, at least not easily, that I could find, which is how I brute forced at least 2 puzzles. And I know somebody else did one. It's like, I think it's here, but I don't know. Like, let's see what Google took pictures of.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Because a lot of
If
the
you have
stuff
time.
are, yeah, if you have time, because a lot of things are like murals on the side of the building, and you can see that from the road,
Yeah.
or weird art installations. We tend to like those.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, and Jennifer found a picture of that, what the correct answer, from the flowers up, and you couldn't see the dory that was actually the planter.
right. Yeah.
And so we didn't actually know if it was or not. We're like, well, that's why we consulted with you. Like, what happens if we don't make it? What happens if we leave and come back,
That's right.
etc.
So you guys got there, and I think when you left, I think my map said you had 30 minutes to get back before 5 o'clock, the deadline. And I looked at Google Maps. I looked it up to figure out, how far it was, and it said 21 minutes each way. And you guys made it back 5 minutes late, so you guys got off.
And I wasn't driving.
Yeah, you were driving. I'm sure you were. Okay, you were navigating.
I was navigating,
All right.
but I plugged it in into my phone and had it talk to Brian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was Point Loma, which if you haven't been there, that particular section is super narrow streets in front of super expensive houses right on the water, and one wrong turn and you're in a dead end looking over the bay.
And we got behind the slowest idiot ever on the way out there, or we would have made it. And I wish I had taken a closer look, because we came back and I was like, this is ridiculous. We can't do this again. And we cut over Nemitz, which has more lanes and less stoplights. It's longer, but there's more room to maneuver, which is not something that Google takes into account. It's just like, well, if you're going average speed to do an average distance, then this is still faster. Like, no. We can't get around idiots going 15 on a 1-lane road, going down Rosecrans for 6 miles. And so even though it took longer, we were able to go Nemitz and then just get on the very end of the 8 and beeline back. And if we had done that out, it would have been really close.
So your team still won, since I think actually the other team got in maybe 3rd or 4th out of 5, but they had more than the other team, so they came in second. We had 5 teams finish, and everyone came in well before time. We kind of chatted with the group for a few minutes while you guys made your way back, and then we did give away prizes. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. We had one team trying to pay their entrance fee for next year already. And everyone said they'd be back next year, so that's great. I had a good time, and I enjoy the chaos of people just running off and then running around. I am disappointed that I missed the first puzzle where everyone was running around with the string trying to measure things and get compass directions, because I think that would have been fun to watch.
It was hilarious, and somebody should have been there with a video camera, recorded on their phone, because not only was all of that happening, and I mentioned this to you already, but well done with the breaking people up into having different clues that were essentially the same thing but with different areas, so that we weren't all trying to measure the exact same area at the same time, since it was the first clue and we weren't tripping over each other. But everybody was doing essentially, I'm guessing, 3 similar instructions that led to a location that they had to report.
Mm-hmm.
But it was immediately adjacent, and by immediately adjacent I mean like 6 feet outside of the fence line of a big 5K food run and food festival happening at the park right next to us. So not only was that there kind of distracting us, but there were people wandering around outside of it or sitting on the benches on the little pathway where we were working, and we literally like had to measure right over the heads of this elderly couple who were just sitting there, and they were like, "Oh, that's interesting, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, we got to just go around this bench, is that okay?" "Oh yeah, that's fine, we'll just hold it high." So we, and man, and they were just really interested in what was going. "Okay, face this way." And they're like, "Oh, that's a compass, I haven't seen one of those in and it was really nice. I had an electronic compass, and John brought his actual physical compass, which
Nice.
was great. So we were verifying one another, and that was a fun clue, and a nice. It's funny because Thomas had mentioned, I had never even heard of this place until just like a couple of years ago, and this is it's a good place for a race, yeah. And I was like, yeah. Until our daughter was born, I didn't even know this is. I mean, I knew of it. I'd driven around it, but I'd never been in and checked any of it out. And when you have a baby, you're like, what new place can we push a stroller around for a while so we can go outside and not be cooped up? And that benefited us in that I knew exactly where the sub row was of those monuments, and it was fun to run down and try to find the one that was clued to us, and then measure that out and the right direction with our 30-foot string, and trying to guess how much of it was 20 feet at the end, which was pretty close. And once we figured out that we had to go to a tree, we're like, okay, it's there.
It's got to be there. Yeah.
it's that one.
That was fun. So during testing, we found that magnetic north and true north are off by about 5 degrees or so, and that led to some difficulties because we used the clue was written with a real compass, and everyone who was testing it had an app on their phone that was giving them slightly different directions. And I swear, the 3 of us, me and Jesse and Wayne, all had our phones out, and we were all pointed in slightly different directions. But we that's what we test, right? We got the special instructions on there that said use a real compass if you got one, and if you don't, you make an adjustment to magnetic north. We also, one of the things that came out of the testing was, originally it was your destination could be a tree, could be a statue, could be a bench. Well, we streamlined it to just trees, because then you could at least get a good idea of where you were going.
That was a good idea, because that was we're not geocaching. We're not going to go dig something up
we're not earning our merit badges, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, okay, we need to find, well, if it's one of these 5, one of this row of trees, it's definitely the 5th one. That's plus or minus. So that was good, and we called in and got it right away. Once we got through to James, and once he answered his phone.
I tell you, no one was, James nor I were expecting teams to call him. That's why he was just waiting over there for you guys to come back.
I wasn't sure, because it said report in your findings, and it was this whole, between the superhero aspect and the submarine aspect, that like my brain just went to call it in, like, hey, we're reporting in. And yeah, that explains why he seemed a little flustered when I called him the first time. And I was curious, which is, I think I mentioned to you, I made a point of not phrasing it in the form of a question so that it was not misinterpreted as asking for a clue, and thus causing us a time penalty.
Yeah.
because I didn't want to, because my first instinct was to call in and say, "Are we supposed to call this in?" And I'm like, "Fuck, there's 5 minutes gone."
Yeah. And as an aside, uh, our time penalty for asking questions made a lot more sense when the entire race was about getting to the end at a certain time. And now that we have this photo thing, we need to have a discussion. I think we're going to do it over email with all the team captains about how we're going to what would be a better way of appropriately incurring penalties, because time has less of an importance when there are a bunch of photos to find later on, right?
Yeah, I mean, 5 minutes. If you lose 5 minutes at the end of the race, it's not.
No,
You can plan around it, and it's not a big deal.
yeah, and if you're out getting photos, as long as you get one extra photo, your time doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Unless there's a tie, which there happened to be this year. But if everyone has a different number of photos at the end, it doesn't matter how many time penalties you have. You can just ask us for all the answers, and we will give them to you because that's part of the rules. And then you could each be there fast and get all the puzzles, and then you're done. So we talked about, okay, maybe we incur photo penalties and make them be worth extra points. Maybe they're worth 2 points each or something like that, and then you can get a point penalty. Maybe we incur your time penalty at lunch, so you have to wait an extra 15 minutes there, and that slows you down leaving the lunch spot, and then you have less time to get as many puzzles, many photos. But I think there's a couple options. I think there's a good way to do it, but we just haven't nailed down what we want to do yet.
Yeah, I think I remember having a discussion about this with Mac last year, and we weren't entirely sure. And I think he had some good ideas. I'll ask him about it next time I see him, because I definitely remember having that conversation, but I don't remember what our solution was.
Because I think we need one, because there is a strategy that no one has attempted to game the system and just race to the lunch line,
Well,
and not care about time penalties, right?
yeah, I mean, luckily, particularly this year when it was just, it was a small crowd of regulars. I mean, as much as we joke about, hey, where are you going to be tomorrow during the test race and everything, like, none of us actually wants to know. We would actually like to run the race. But much like Whitney, we want to win, but we want to know we beat you when we do it. Not, try to cheat or, screw you up or something else. We want to actually earn it and do it well. That's not a problem now. But yeah, I could definitely see if somebody came in and was just like, all right, how are we going to mess up this little local race and game it? Yeah.
It's a different puzzle to solve, not necessarily the one we were intending you to solve. But
sure.
Yeah.
Well, we overall had a great time. We went, like I said, we only had that one hiccup on the second half, which we went back and solved out of pride. But which clue did you not want to discuss? Which number? Okay, that was pretty cool.
I had a good time with that. However, I have mailed an extra copy to someone who may be watching, so I figure I'll let him solve it, and then we'll talk about it.
That sounds like fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
One of our former playtesters has moved away, and there were probably 2 puzzles out of all of them that can be solved without being on site, because we had the phoner, right, where the opposite of the captain on the away team,
sure.
where one person has to give directions and everyone else is out looking for things. We had the first one we talked about, the orienteering. You can't do that without actually being there. But the next 2 in the morning were puzzles that you could actually solve with just what you had on hand. So looking forward to hearing how that goes off site.
Cool. Well, we had a great time, and as always, we're excited to run again next year. We were short a player. We've only ever been short a player like a handful of times in the 12. We missed a whole race one year, but aside from that, in the 12 races we've run out of the 13, I think we've had 3 years where we've had one different person missing, maybe 4, maybe John missed 2, but we missed Mac this year, and it was not until he was gone that we realized how much he was doing. Like, I was conscious, like, academically aware. Okay, yeah, he's been plugging all the locations into an app or a map and then directing us around, or setting us up with Wi-Fi, or doing a lot of the technical things we have now caught up to him being on the leading edge of, which was nice. John had some Wi-Fi for us, and we all have smartphones and laptops and everything now, but he's been the source of that. So I since my car had what ended up being a minor thing, long story, but luckily more or less happy ending. But it stalled out at the very beginning of our lunch break as we pulled into the short drive from the stop to the food, and it stalled out twice. And I'm like, I do not want to take this on a scavenger hunt, a 5-hour scavenger hunt, and have it stall. It's like, it's only a problem when we stop and go. I'm like, that's all we're going to do is stop and go. And so Brian walked over and got his car, and we used his car for the second half. So since he was me, I was Mac.
Right. Okay.
Brian was filling in. Brian is the tester we stole. I think we joked about that on a previous show.
This is the fewest number of volunteers we have ever had. We had 2 stops. So I got to be a stop. James was a stop. James was 2 stops.
That's right.
Yeah, it went well. If we couldn't have done it without the 2 people. Jesse and his family was 1 stop, and Matt was another stop. But man, any less, and we would have been out of luck. I don't think we could have done it. Yeah,
I was
our person and 2 other volunteers were just out of state, so couldn't help us.
Yeah, I was curious if that was a deliberate design out of necessity because of time or because of volunteers, or if you just were like, let's backload this one and see how many clues they can get done.
No, there was not a design. We just we figured we wanted to send you a few places on that was another thing that was funny. We wanted to send you a few places around Liberty Station because it's still an awesome place to have a race. But we did the photo race on Liberty Station last year, so we wanted to have the photo race be just somewhere else and lead to another park. So we just had a lot of things. During the test race, I think we had 3 pages. We had the page of puzzles that I wrote, the page of puzzles that James wrote, and the page of destinations that we hadn't had time to write puzzles for. So we just drove there and checked them out, and then we wrote puzzles for them later.
Speaking of destinations you didn't use, like the superhero themed race that didn't go to the comic book store.
Yes. Well, we have a problem that we don't want to send people running through a store. You know what I mean? It's bad enough that we're sending people running through. I have the same thing with churches. There's a lot of churches on the way that would make great spots, but we don't want to send somebody running through a cemetery or a church because it's just people would just be sprinting, and that's just not right. So there were comic book stores along the way that we thought would be great. I think we used one for a photo last year, but there was a huge Ninja Turtle like life-size big Ninja Turtle in the doorways that we wanted to use. Yeah. I was like, it's just we're gonna get people thrown out. I'm remembering back to a Horton Plaza. And the annoyed guards that were starting to throw people out for running.
That's right.
Right. And no scavenger hunts or nothing like that. They didn't want to have anything like that. And so people were, shuffling around, pretending not to take pictures. Yeah. And after those 3 pages, we added a 4th page of extra puzzles because why not?
Sure.
So, yeah, that was fun.
Well, we had a good time, and one of the things that came up in discussion was that, and so that was in the limited amount of pre-gaming that you can do in a race like this. I was very pleased to have sussed out. It's like there's a lot of Liberty Station that was not covered, and we did was scavenger hunt stuff. We didn't do any actual clues. I bet they have a lot left there, and we could totally spend at least part of the morning there, if not the whole thing. So, I mean, there's not a lot of research I can do without like just going crazy, but I did print out some maps, so we had that on hand. And I drove over and walked around the weekend before just to be like, oh yeah, okay, I remember where this is, and I remember where that is, and Stone Brewery is over here.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think about maybe the weekend that we were doing the test race. I was talking to John, and he said something about, man, last year we had to run so much on Liberty Station for the scavenger hunt. Man, that was rough. And all I'm thinking to myself is the entire first half of the race is running around Liberty Station. That's
yep.
hilarious. uh,
Well, that meant Thomas got to experience it.
yeah. Yeah, no, he was telling me that, man, he'd never been there before, and he had a great time. He's looking forward to going back and just wandering around because it's if you're a tourist in San Diego and you have even a half day to spend,
Yeah,
it's an old Navy training base. They've converted most of the building. Well, they've converted about a third of the base to housing on the far west side, and then there's a couple of schools, and then there's shopping areas. There's the barracks have been turned into all kinds of different things. There's a big food court with just a North Park like. If you're familiar with that in Columbus,
yeah,
just spectrum of different foods to eat. There's plenty of parks and wide open space to look around. There's kind of museumy things, Navy stuff everywhere. There's just huge cannons from battleships and all kinds of things everywhere. There's like the whole memorial for submarines lost at sea. The place where we ran you guys around, that was half of it. There's another half of it farther down where the festivities were going on for
yep.
the race. Um,
I was wondering if we were going to be on either one or if
yeah.
it was going to be both.
Yeah, well, yeah, we picked the one most likely to have access. And it's funny because I got there maybe about 15 minutes before the team started showing up, and there were hundreds of people walking down in between those rows as part of the 4K track, and I'm thinking,
Oh, wow.
oh, this is either going to be really good or really bad. But thankfully, it stopped, and most of the people were done by the time we launched at 9ish or so. That was great. Uh, but yeah, it's if you're in town, it's a great place to wander around Liberty Station. There's plenty of free parking, and there's plenty of stuff to do, plenty of places to eat, and a good place to spend a day. So there you go.
Yeah.
There's a plug.
All right. Well, that's what we did last weekend. What are we going to do next weekend? Aside from go turn off that alarm. I'll be right back.
Right. So it's been a while since we've had a scrapbooking party. So I've still got this box of promos over here. I've got 20 promos for the previous two sets and for the next set. So if you happen to go to, I want to say UK Nationals, I think we set a preview set of 1E cards that way. But I've got 1E promos, 2E promos. I've got some special promos for a special thing. And I've got the rest of the Worlds promos to cut up for the Worlds prizes. That was for folks who won it in the raffle, and a couple of things going to a couple of different places. So we're gonna have a long-awaited scrapbooking party. So if you have things in the promenade that have been waiting for a long time, we should be putting together the last of those, so I can send those out. If you have something that's ancient, I might just pull something from my stock, and so I can send that out to you and get it out. Otherwise, expect additional stock to go up in the promenade probably on Sunday after the gang has put together all the promos and I put things together and I know how many of everything we have. It should go up on the store, so you'll be able to requisition new promos probably this Sunday. We'll see.
Excellent. So looking forward to being there for that. Having missed the last couple, but I think we have cooperatively engaging offspring that will hopefully occupy each other so that can get some scrapbooking done. And then on Sunday, JD has been spearheading the effort to get us back into active duty, as it were, duty, as we try to get into 1E constructed at noon at our favorite Arby's. And we're going to do on Sunday, I think because of the scrapbooking party, but that's, which is good, so we can get everything done. So if you're in town and you want to go to Arby's while you're on vacation in San Diego and bring a 1E deck, that's where we'll be.
Yeah, I was supposed to be at a softball tournament that morning with Cordelia, but she hurt her arm last weekend, so we might just be going to watch. if that's the case, as soon as it's over, we'll probably swing by, maybe grab some lunch, say hi to everybody, and then head back up north. We'll be down in like Poway or something. So we'll be in that area.
All right. Well, the last bit of Star Trek news we have is Disco Trek, Star Trek Discovery, is slowly making its way back to the airwaves. We're a year past season 1, but they're not going to bring season 2 until the beginning of next year, 2019. But they're giving us at least a little new material. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to watch it yet. We can probably actually just mention it now in case nobody that is watching has seen it, and then we can talk about it later. But it is unfortunately, as far as I can tell, only available to CBS subscribers. So you'd have to go back online to get that. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know without talking to him that the chairman thoroughly enjoyed it because it was about Cadet Tilly. But I thought it was really well done, and I'm very much in the spirit of both Star Trek and Discovery. Looking forward to some more material because they've got 3 more shorts coming out. And the season 2 trailer had some little Section 31 teaser.
Nice.
So I'm excited.
I have decided that I'm probably going to wait a week or two, and then I'll join up with a subscription, watch everything, and then take a break up, take a month off or 2, go back on again, just because the subscription makes me hurt, but I'll pay it so I can watch the show in chunks.
Yeah. I think I'm looking forward to it. We'll see if the pay to play continues to be, because I've talked to several people who have been like, oh yeah, I think I watched the first half, and I'm like, but we haven't watched the second half of the season yet. And I'm like, oh God, I can't tell you anything, but it's like, you have to watch the second half. Like the first half is just set up for the second half.
Pretty good. Yeah.
So yeah.
It's been long enough that I'm like, oh man, I feel like I need to go back and watch it again. And it's not like there were that many episodes. What, like 12?
No, like 12, 16. Was it 8 and 8?
Yeah, something like that. So
I think
that
that
might be
sounds
fun to
right.
do. While it's building up again, building up a few episodes.
Yeah.
To just go back and watch the previous season and then go. So
Yeah.
I might do that. Maybe we can have a little a recap session and then start talking about the new stuff.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right, sounds good.
All right. In the meantime, I think that's all the intelligence we have this week because we ran it all out this weekend. But I am Sir Rogue.
And I'm Sir Dan.
And I will remind you all to expand your power in the universe.
And how's your end?